The night my fiancé was supposed to put a ring on my finger in front of everyone we loved. My own sister walked in wearing my dress, my perfume, and a smile meant to take everything from me. What happened next? Even I didn't see it coming. Before I get into this story, I need you to do something for me. If you have ever had someone in your own bloodline try to tear down what you built, drop a heart in the comments right now, because this story is for you. Make sure you're subscribed and hit that bell because the kind of tea I am about to pour does not get cold. Stay with me all the way to the end because the best part, it does not happen where you think it will. Let me paint you the picture first because context is everything. The venue was a rooftop garden in the middle of the city, string lights hanging like stars that someone pulled down just for us, round tables dressed in ivory and deep green, candles. Flowers I had picked myself because I am that kind of woman, the kind who puts her hands on the details of her own life. The air smelled like jasmine and something warm, and I remember standing near the entrance thinking, this is it. This is the moment everything changes. My name is Nadia, and I had worked for every single thing I had. I did not come from money. I came from a two-bedroom apartment with thin walls and a mother who worked double shifts and a sister who always found a way to make my good days about her. I put myself through school. I built a career in architecture that people told me I was not built for. I learned how to walk into rooms that were not designed for women like me, and I made those rooms remember my name. And then I met Duke Harrington. Now when I say Duke, I do not mean that as a nickname. That is his actual name. Old family, old money, the kind of quiet wealth that does not announce itself with flashy things, it just sits in the way a man carries himself. The way he speaks without rushing. The way he listens like your words are the only words in the room. I met him at a fundraiser for an architectural preservation project I was leading. He was on the donor board I was presenting. And after everyone else had moved on to the cocktail hour, he stayed behind and asked me 3 questions about load-bearing walls that told me he had actually listened to every word I said. I was done for, completely done for. We dated for 2 years before he brought up marriage. 2 years of him showing up, being steady, choosing me over and over again in quiet ways that nobody else could see but me. His family did not exactly roll out the welcome mat. His mother in particular had this way of looking at me like I was a puzzle she had not agreed to solve. But Duke never flinched, never apologized for me, never asked me to shrink. So when he said he wanted to propose properly with the people we loved around us, I felt something in my chest that I can only describe as fullness. Like every hard year had been leading to exactly this room, this night, this man, and then there was Simone. My sister, 18 months younger than me, beautiful in the way that always made rooms shift when she walked in, and she had spent her entire life walking into the rooms I had already warmed up and acting like she had built them herself. I want to be careful here because she is still my blood and I do not speak about her with hatred, but I have to be honest. From the time we were girls, Simone had a pattern. When I got the lead in the school play, she cried to our mother until she got a speaking part added. When I got a scholarship, she told the whole family she had been accepted somewhere better, to a school she had never even applied to. When I dated someone she had previously ignored, suddenly he became the most interesting man she had ever seen. My mother always said, that is just how Simone loves you. She wants what you have because she admires you. And for years, too many years, I accepted that explanation. Because what else do you do with that? She is your sister, you love her, you keep the peace. You protect the family table even when you are the one getting burned by it. But I remember one specific moment that I should have held onto tighter. I was 26. I had just landed my first major contract, a commercial project that was going to put my name on the map. I came home for Sunday dinner, face glowing, news ready. And before I could even sit down, Simone announced that she was moving to New York to pursue modeling. The whole dinner became about her plans, her dreams, her excitement. I never told them about my contract that night. I drove home alone and I cried, and then I told myself I was being selfish. She was not doing it on purpose. She just needed the light sometimes. I told myself that lie for 9 more years. When Duke and I went to tell the family about the engagement privately before the party, I watched Simone's face very carefully. She smiled, wide, warm. She hugged me long and she whispered, "You deserve this," in my ear, and I felt something in my stomach that I could not name. Not quite joy, not quite warning. Something in between that I chose to ignore because I wanted the moment to be clean. She asked if she could help with the party. I said yes because my mother was already giving me that look, the one that said, "Include your sister, Nadia, do not make this difficult." So I said yes. I gave her the details, the venue, the color palette. The timeline, I did not think twice about the dress hanging on my bedroom door when she came over to help me write the guest list. I should have. My best friend Petra told me the week before the party. She sat across from me at our usual coffee spot, wrapped both hands around her mug, and said, Nadia, watch your sister at this party. I am not playing with you. I laughed. I actually laughed. I told her she was being dramatic, that Simone had changed, that people grow up. Petra looked at me with the face she makes when she knows she is right but loves me too much to push, and she let it go. She did not let it go internally. I would find that out later. The night before the party, I could not sleep. I lay in the dark next to Duke and I stared at the ceiling and I felt this low hum of dread that I could not explain. Not about him, never about him. About something I could not see yet. Duke was already asleep, one hand resting on mine the way he always did, and I told myself, you are overthinking. You are scared of good things, let yourself have this. I closed my eyes. I told the feeling to be quiet. It was not quiet. The party started beautifully. I arrived early to do one last check of everything, and when I tell you the rooftop looked like a dream I had once and forgot, I mean it. The lights were perfect. The flowers were perfect. Our closest friends and family were filtering in with warm faces and genuine energy, and I stood there in my dress, a deep emerald green, custom-made, fitted through the waist and dramatic at the hem, and I felt like myself. Fully, completely myself. Duke arrived 20 minutes in. He came through the entrance and found me immediately across the room, the way he always does, like there is a line between us that he follows without thinking. He crossed the space and put both hands on my face and said, you look like everything, and I laughed and pressed my forehead to his. His mother was there, stationed near the bar in a cream dress and an expression I had learned to read. Not warm, not cold. Somewhere in that complicated middle she always occupied with me. But even she raised her glass when Duke and I made eye contact across the room, and I took that as the best I was going to get. For about 40 minutes, everything was exactly what it was supposed to be, and then Simone walked in. I felt the shift before I saw her, a ripple in the room, whispers starting in the back near the entrance and moving forward like a slow wave. I turned around and there she was, wearing emerald green, not just green, not a similar green, the same shade, the same silhouette, a dress that did not exist in any store because the style was custom, the style was mine. She had seen my dress on my door and she had gone and had something made. I do not know when, I do not know how. But she was standing at the entrance of my engagement party wearing a version of my dress and smiling at the room like she had just arrived at her own event. The whispers got louder. I stood completely still. I have this thing that happens to me when I am truly shocked. I go very, very quiet inside. Like everything pauses while my mind catches up to what my eyes are seeing. I watched her move through the room, touching arms, laughing with people I had invited. Working the space with the ease of someone who had prepared for this moment, and then she moved toward Duke, not toward me, toward him. She touched his arm, leaned in close, and said something that made his face go completely unreadable. I know Duke's face. I know every version of it, and the version I was looking at from across that rooftop was one I had never seen before. Not angry, not amused, just closed, like a door shutting quietly. He glanced at me once, just once, and I could not read it. I started moving toward them and Petra appeared from nowhere and put her hand on my arm. Not yet, she said quietly. Let him handle it. I did not understand what she meant. I would understand later. Simone was telling Duke that I had only ever been with him for what he represented. Status, access, a way out of where I came from. She told him I had said it myself, that she had proof. She pulled out her phone and showed him a printed screenshot of a text exchange between me and a friend, cropped and framed to make it sound like I had calculated this entire relationship from the beginning. She smiled the whole time she said it. That is the part that still sits with me. She smiled, and I stood across the room watching my sister try to burn down my life with her bare hands. Duke said nothing. He looked at the paper, he handed it back to her. And then he stepped away and walked to the center of the room and asked for everyone's attention. My heart stopped. The room got quiet in that way rooms do when the person speaking has the kind of presence that does not require a loud voice. Duke stood in the center of that rooftop and he looked calm, completely calm, the kind of calm that is not emptiness, it is control, and he began to speak. He said he wanted to take a moment before the evening went any further, because there was something the room deserved to know. He said that a few weeks ago, he had received a warning from someone who loved Nadia enough to protect her even when Nadia would not protect herself. He said that warning gave him time to prepare. And that what had just happened, the entrance, the dress, the private conversation in the corner, had gone exactly the way he expected it to go. I looked at Petra. Petra looked at her shoes. She had gone to Duke. Not to warn him against me, to warn him about Simone. She had told him everything she knew, everything she had watched build over years, and she had trusted him to handle it the right way. And he had said nothing to me because, and he said this out loud in front of everyone, I wanted Nadia to see it clearly, not through my eyes, through her own. I felt something crack open in my chest, then he addressed the screenshot. He said that his assistant had pulled the full and unedited text thread at his request 3 days prior. He held up his phone and read the actual context of the message Simone had cropped. In the full version, I was not calculating anything. I was defending Duke. A friend of mine had questioned whether he was genuine, whether a man like him could really love a woman like me without an agenda of his own, and I had gone to bat for him. Completely, without hesitation. I had said that Duke Harrington was the most honest person I had ever known, and that if people could not see that, the problem was in their eyes, not in him. The room turned. I watched it happen. The faces that had been uncertain, confused, a little entertained by the drama, they shifted. People looked at Simone, and Simone, for the first time in her life, had nowhere to put her smile. Then Duke looked at me. He crossed the room slowly, and I was already crying before he reached me, the quiet kind, not the falling apart kind. The kind that comes when something true finally lands. He stood in front of me and he took both my hands and he said that he had never in his life met a woman who worked as hard as I did, loved as honestly as I did, and asked for as little recognition as I did. He said that the night he stayed behind at that fundraiser, he did not stay because of the project. He stayed because he had watched me command that room for 45 minutes and he just knew, that he was looking at someone he did not want to walk away from. And then he got on one knee. The ring was not what I expected. I had expected something traditional. Duke was a traditional man in many ways, but the ring was architectural. A deep green emerald center stone surrounded by a structure of smaller diamonds that looked like the skeleton of a building when you looked at it closely. He had had it designed. He had thought about who I was and he had put it in metal and stone and he was holding it up at me with steady hands and eyes that did not blink. He said, Nadia, you are the first person who ever wanted me and not what came with me. Say yes and I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never question that. I said yes so fast. The room erupted, and I mean erupted, the kind of noise that comes from people who are genuinely happy, not politely happy. I heard Petra screaming behind me. I heard laughter and clapping and someone's glass hitting a table too hard out of pure excitement. And then from the side of the room, Simone opened her mouth. I do not know what she intended to say. I do not think it would have mattered. Because before a single word came out, Duke's mother, the woman in the cream dress who had never once looked at me like I was enough, straightened her spine, turned her head in Simone's direction, and said in the clearest, most final voice I have ever heard, you may leave. 2 words. Simone left. Nobody followed her. Later that night, after the guests had gone and the string lights were still glowing above an empty rooftop, Duke and I sat on the edge of a table with our shoes off, and the city spread out below us like it was ours. I asked him why he had not warned me. He was quiet for a moment and then he said, because if I had told you, you would have handled it. You would have controlled the situation, smoothed it over, kept the peace. And you would have spent the rest of your life wondering if you had read Simone wrong. I needed you to see it with no interference. I needed it to be undeniable. I turned that over in my mind for a long time. He was right. I would have managed it. I would have called Simone, given her a chance to explain, accepted something halfway close to an apology, and gone into that party carrying the weight of her almost betrayal instead of the full truth of it. I would have protected her again. He had loved me enough to let me see the truth whole. The next morning, my mother called. She had been at the party, she had seen everything, and her first words were not, "Are you okay?" or "Congratulations." Her first words were, "Nadia, your sister is devastated. She made a mistake and she feels terrible. You know how Simone gets." I held the phone for a moment. I looked at the ring on my finger. I thought about every dinner where my news got swallowed. Every time I drove home alone with something good that nobody made space for. Every time I was told that keeping my sister comfortable was more important than my right to be protected. And I said very calmly, "Mama, I love you, I love Simone. But I will not be managing her feelings about what she did to me at my own engagement party. When she is ready to take full responsibility, not feel bad, not regret how it looked, but actually take responsibility, I will be here. Until then, I need you to respect my space." My mother did not like that. The call ended awkwardly, and I sat with the discomfort of it without trying to fix it, which was new for me, uncomfortable and new and necessary. Here is what I learned from that night. There is a kind of woman who does not compete with you loudly. She does not come at you with obvious weapons. She uses access. She uses proximity. She waits for the moments that matter most, and she uses your own trust as the door in. I had known for years what Simone was capable of, and I had kept handing her keys because the alternative, accepting that my sister genuinely wanted to take from me, was too painful to hold. The ring on my finger is not just a promise from Duke. It is a reminder to myself that I am worth protecting, that the people who sit at my table should be people who add to what I am building, not people waiting for the moment to knock it down. Some doors close loudly, some close quietly. Simone's closed in the middle of a rooftop in front of everyone, called out by a woman who owed me nothing and chose me anyway. I think about Duke's mother sometimes. The way she said those two words, no drama, no performance, just authority and finality. I have thought about asking her what shifted for her that night, whether she finally saw something in me she respected, or whether she simply could not stand to watch someone behave that way at her son's event. Maybe both, maybe it does not matter. What matters is that I walked off that rooftop engaged to a man who sees me, not the polished version of me, not the version that keeps the peace and swallows the hurt, the real one. The one who cried in her car at 26 because her sister ate her moment for dinner. That woman deserved this. She really did. If this story moved something in you, I need you to sit with that feeling for a second. Because the women who resonate with this are not just watching a story, they are remembering one of their own. The person who used your access against you, the family member who smiled at your success while quietly working against it. The moment you finally chose yourself and it felt like grief and freedom at the same time, you are not alone in that. Drop a red heart below if Nadia's story hit home. Share this with the woman in your life who needs to hear it today. Subscribe if you are new here because this is the kind of storytelling we do, real, deep, and always on your side. And if you want the next story the second it drops, hit that bell right now. You deserve the ring, you deserve the rooftop. And you deserve people around you who are there to celebrate, not to compete. I will see you in the next one.